now is a really good time, I think, for universities collectively to think about how best to organise themselves and working with each other in the ongoing implementation of the ESIF programme. Universities UK, I think, have done a really important job of leadership and national coordination, and we at the Higher Education Funding Council have been really pleased to support that work. But we're now at that pivotal stage where much of the important design work, certainly at the national level, is either complete or about to be completed. Yes, there are some important matters of nitty-gritty which still need to be resolved, but good progress is being made. But we're now at that important stage where the baton really is being passed down to the local level in terms of the local ESIF committees, on which the universities play that important role of collaborative leadership, with of course, a wide range of other partners. So we need to think about how best to support that activity going forward. Now, thus far, as you're aware, James, Universities UK have coordinated two very large, very active, and I think very successful working groups around the ESIF programme. And I think quite right now, Universities UK and ourselves are keen to see a debate about, well, what are the options going forward, perhaps from October or onwards. And I think one of the options, and I think, in this time of austerity, is, well, actually, should we start from a zero base and say, well, actually, let's just stop? At a national level, is there that much more to do? I think quite rightly, and I think quite importantly, Universities UK have set out your very prepared and very keen to continue to provide that link, that important link to the representatives of the sector on the national committees. So providing the role of bottom-up and top-down communication and ensuring that the representatives of the sector can act successfully as a representative. Very much fulfilling the ethos of the Code of Conduct of Partnership, which is now part of the embedded in the regulations. So I think that's very positive. So even without a formal structure, having that important line of communication, I think it will continue going forward. But what are the other options? Well, one option could be, for instance, then rather than UK providing the national coordination, the sector itself could assume responsibility with individual institutions or grouping of institutions taking a lead on a particular part of the programme. And we saw some good examples of that yesterday at the working group in York. Again, another packed meeting with a top quality debate. Now, that sector leadership continue with the current volume of activity, or perhaps it could be scaled back a little bit to reflect upon the fact that the mantle in a programme which has devolved, with a sort of a soft use of the phrase devolved, the mantle's been passed down. Or it could be that some of the regional associations, such as either a formal association, as we have in parts of Yorkshire and the North West, could take forward that role of coordination at that level. And again, that's another option which we could consider. We need to think, though, about how best we ensure that we provide the best possible service for universities across England. And not all places are covered by a formal association. We're very aware in some places universities discuss ESIF on a collaborative basis informally, and I think that's sometimes just as successful. But how do we ensure that where there isn't that mechanism, the same level of service or the appropriate level of service can be brought forward? Or perhaps a different option would be to think about, well, to the extent to which we've seen really positive, good progress certainly in the early bidding rounds, that the levels of commitment are very positive, we could see that even in those parts of England where there are relatively high allocations of ESIF, actually a good percentage of that programme could be committed, if not formally but informally, by the end of this year. So, and we might want to think perhaps about a more strategic approach to the development of policy for local growth, and within that, a wider range of funding sources, of which ESIF would be one relatively small part. Because I think we need to remember, in some parts of England, the notional ESIF allocation is relatively small. And those types of funding, in those areas, other funding streams are probably much more important. So it's finding that right approach that's right for the sector across different parts of England, in a way which recognises that the stage of programme design is moving towards programme implementation. You know, I know Universities UK are really keen to hear from the sector and from your membership about the best way to do this over the course of the next few weeks. And I understand that by early autumn, you'll be looking forward to bring forward some proposals to take that forward. And we at HEFCE are really keen to continue to work with the sector on that basis.